We're back. It's week 7 of Easy Education. I'm Easy to Chris, and I'm here once again to hopefully make education easy for you. This is starting to sound really silly because it's becoming normal, and I think that's a fun thing for me, just because I can actually talk to people about what it is that I do in my spare time now. I used to do all these live streams when I was doing the podcast with my dad, and like the ease of the pitch was so much fun when it got to a point where I was like, yeah, this is what I do on a regular basis. And all of this is important because this week we are covering, once again, atomic habits. So this week specifically, good thing I'm not teaching you guys words in the English language, but I'm using my ability to communicate with you to teach the things that I'm learning myself. So attention as a moral choice is the focus of week 7. What we're going through this week is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and we're going through chapters 7 through 9, although I'm really going to go 7 to 10. And the reason being is part 2 of the book is the second law, and that covers chapters 8, 9, and 10. So instead of just doing almost all of it, I just decided we're just covering all of the second law this week. The focus of the reading is attention as an ethical decision. And that's the lens in which we're reading, but the focus of this week is what you are implicitly choosing by what you attend to. Now, what's really interesting is when we look at the second law. The second law in effective habit forming on atomic habits is make it attractive. Now, in week 4, we went through the first law, and the first law was make it obvious. And it's really interesting for me, starting to recognize a lot of the lessons that are being taught to me, because when I developed this entire thing, there was an ultimate goal. And I've talked about this a couple of times. Really, the whole purpose of me doing these videos and making this podcast is so that way I have a practical application for the lessons that it is that I'm trying to learn. And realistically, I'm starting to understand that. I am the person who now is a lot more comfortable in front of this camera. I'm a lot more comfortable coming into my office and speaking alone in a room with no interaction with anybody else, and making sure that I can create these videos that are kind of demonstrating how adult homeschooled education can look like and what the lessons that I can take out of that have done for me specifically. And in the make it obvious law, I was trying to really figure out how is it that I am able to apply this lesson into building this platform specifically to be able to demonstrate for you guys. And honestly, the most simple thing that I did has been the most effective out of anything that I've ever done. So, point in case, the camera that I am using right now, it has been inside this bag, really, really wonderful Peter McKinnon nomadic bag, and it lives there. The tripod lives there, all the lenses live there, everything about my camera lives there. And the whole mentality that I have is I want to be able to grab this and take my camera with me. Now, when I bought this entire setup, this A7S III, it was with the intention of making videos. And instead, I just did the things that I was familiar with. I took pictures. And I love the fact that I can use this to take pictures. It's a great camera. It's more than just a good camera. It's a great camera. But, I'm not using it for the reason that I bought it. I'm not using the microphone ever. So make it obvious. Make it something that you want to use. Make it something that you can't avoid. The last couple weeks, I've just had this not living in the bag that it's always lived in. It has lived on my tripod, and my tripod has been right here. So every single time that I come into my office, I see my tripod with my camera, with my microphone attached to it, and I realize like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to record this week. That is an ongoing thing in my head now. Anytime that I come into my office, oh yeah, there's my camera. I'm gonna be recording this week. Which also ties into one of the lessons from Make It Obvious, associate the space with what it is that you're wanting to do. I was talking to somebody in the barber shop about how when I first got this office set up, I was really intimidated by the fact that I had 4 walls that were my own. And, it's kind of a silly thing, but I set everything up in every single spot that I wanted it to exist in, and I had no idea what to do with this room. I would literally come in here and just sit and try and think about what is the workflow that I'm going to create. What kind of, tasks will I accomplish? What kind of work will I get done? And I just sat in here not used to the space. And that's largely because I came from an apartment that was like 800 square foot. And my wife worked at home, so the office space was kind of her space. I had no real dedicated creative space. And this space became my dedicated space for creativity. But I didn't know how to be creative, as it were, So I would sit in here and just really think about it. Like, how do I get into the mindset of it? And because I've had the camera out, and because I've been doing the podcast consistently for a month and a half now, I recognize what this space needs to be. And I realize like a lot of the decorations that I have in here, like you guys just see the bookshelf in the background, but a lot of the things that I have in here are kind of counterproductive to what this space has actually become. So I'm sure that my office is going to evolve a little bit more over the next year or so that way it can really, really hone into what I need this to be for what I'm utilizing this office for, not the concepts of what I once thought it was going to be. And I'm going to make my office a much more obvious space of how it is that I'm going to accomplish work. So, now, that's making it obvious. That was the first law, but we covered that in week 4, and that's just simply the things that I've been doing to apply that lesson into what it is that I'm doing with this podcast. I want to make this a little bit better. So how do I make it attractive? Well, I kind of need a little bit of structure. And I also need to have a goal in mind of something that's attractive to me. So in this, there's a couple of things that it talks about. It talks about if you have good habits that you want to form, you can try and make them more attractive than what they are on the surface level. A good point in case is when I work out in the morning. I wake up at 5:30 every morning and I spend an hour in my garage working out. I don't particularly enjoy working out, but I do have a goal of aging gracefully, and I think that working out is a requirement for me to age gracefully. But past that, that is me time. That is the only time in the day that I actually get that's my time. And because of that, I really value that hour that I get in the garage because it's time that I can be in my head. It's time that I can really kind of get focused on the day and really get myself situated before getting ready for the day. And that's how I made working out more attractive, was not the idea that, oh, I'm going to get strong, oh, I'm going to age gracefully, oh, these are really positive things for me physically. No, it's giving me the one thing that I want, which is some alone time in the only time of the day that I'm able to get it. And that's how I can make something more attractive to continue pursuing that. I kind of hurt my neck last night, so I didn't get to work out this morning, and I was actually really bummed because I didn't get that time that I normally get. So I'm going to be in recovery for a few days. I'm not going to push myself too hard, but first thing next week, I'm really excited that I'm going to be able to start my days out in that same way that I'm used to. Now, the opposite of that is if you have some bad habits in life, like maybe let's say you are a smoker and you're trying to quit smoking. How can you make that fixation that you have less attractive? How can you make it unattractive? How can it be something that you don't gravitate towards it? And those are some of the real practices of the make it attractive law. Is humans just naturally want to go towards things that they find attractive. They gravitate towards that. And I really started talking to a lot of my clients about what it is. And there's one constant theme that comes up, which is, why are you doing this? And I had one conversation specifically with a buddy of mine who came in, and we were talking about the books that we were reading, and he's reading some fantasy novels. And then once he tells me about his books, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right now I'm reading a couple of books with this whole curriculum that I built, and the one that I'm currently reading is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he says, oh, so you're into self-help, self-improvement books. And I kind of laughed because, that connotation of a self-help book is like that lonely person in the one portion of the bookstore trying to figure out how it is that they can solve all the problems in their life. I laughed and I was like, yeah, I appreciate that you said self-improvement because it's a little bit more of an attractive way of saying that. And then the next morning, I was in the shower and I realized, actually, I think the term that I really prefer is personal development. Books on personal development are what I strive most towards. And it led me into a question of, why do I care about personal development? Well, there's a handful of reasons. One, I like knowing that I'm working on making myself to be a more attractive version of myself than the person that I am today. I think that the person that I will be 15 years from now is a much more attractive person than I am right now. And that has nothing to do with physical beauty. It has everything towards somebody that I would gravitate myself towards more than the person that I am currently. I am gravitating towards the attractiveness of the person that I am. And because of that, I'm doing the work that's required out of me in order to be that attractive version of myself. If I stagnate and I stay the exact same person that I am today, I'm kind of peaking. And I'm not interested in peaking. I hope to peak sometime in my 50s. And I certainly didn't peak in high school, so I don't have a fondness of nostalgia that a lot of people do. That was really the realization that I made, is I'm working on becoming a more attractive person than I am right now. Now, why do I think that person is more attractive is the next question that comes up out of that. And realistically, it all comes back to a lot of the things that I've been learning from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. What is your purpose in life? What is the thing that drives you? And this is the thing that drives all of the reason that I became a barber. It's my drive for why it is that I have little communities that I try to engage myself in. It's why I try to be politically active in my community. It's because I value relationships. And I think that if I can develop myself to a person who can better form relationships with other people, it's because I can understand other people from where it is that they're at in life. And I can recognize that there's a larger world perspective than just simply my lived experience, and there's other lived experiences that I can learn from. To me, that's a really attractive thing, to know that I am better at communicating with other people. And as an ancillary to that, one of the things that I really am trying to do is finish writing my book. And being able to communicate that story in a way to an audience that is much wider than the people who just naturally hear me as who I am, that's a really attractive goal that I have. Like, being able to put the term author next to my name is a really attractive goal, and being able to have this practice where I'm writing these essays and editing them and making this content and actually educating others on how this education process that I've built for myself can apply in other people's lives as well, that is all in an effort to aid me in my communication skills. And I think one of the funniest things that I've realized is I do have an understanding of homeschooled education that a lot of people don't have. I was homeschooled from 6th grade to graduation. I graduated at 16 just because I got through it, because I wasn't waiting on other people to, let's finish the class based on the slowest kid's abilities. It's just go, learn, go, learn, go, learn. And that's the application that I'm putting into this process right now. And what I have realized is that the value that I offer is towards a community of people that I don't typically find myself associated with in a normal life. But there are a lot of people that are my age that have kids themselves that they want to homeschool and teach their kids the values and lessons that they want to teach, but they might not have structure, and they certainly don't have a curriculum. And unfortunately, I found out that most people my age are not using artificial intelligence in a way that is effective to actually build the intelligence and critical thinking skills that are necessary for the next generation to be successful. That is genuinely the group of people that I think can offer, or that I can offer the most help to, which is why anytime that I'm doing these podcasts, I am actively becoming a natural version of myself that's kind of a PG version of myself. I don't know if you can tell this, but I've spent some time in some tattoo shops. I'm not typically this polite and refined on the outside. But I care about you, and that's why I'm trying to make this as friendly as I possibly can for everybody. And honestly, being able to educate other people and giving somebody else that aha moment is such a value and win to me that in and of itself is another attractive thing that I'm going towards. All of this is to say, that is how I've been able to make it to week 7 with consistency on this. In the beginning when I started doing all of this seemed like a whole lot of work. I've got homework that I gave myself. I've got reading materials. I've got essays. I've got editing. I've got video content production. I've got to market. I've got to post podcasts places. I have to write on my Substack. I have to update my website. And I've had many of my clients in the barbershop ask, why is it that I'm doing this? And it all comes down to I'm trying to build a community. And I think that that's a real win for me. So that's kind of the takeaways from this week's lesson of Atomic Habits. Again, we went through chapters 7 through 10, which is the second law of effective habit forming. We're going to go into how to make it attractive. Now, next week, I think we're actually staying in Atomic Habits. We are. Yeah, so next week is going to be focused on systems versus willpower. We'll be going through chapters 10 through 12 of Atomic Habits with the lens of your environment shapes outcomes. The environment shapes the outcome. The focus that I'll be writing on next week is why personal change fails in hostile systems. Now, there goes all my books. I think chapters 10 through 12 is actually the next, it's the first half of the third law, which is make it easy. I like that one. It's easy education. Make it easy. That's really fantastic. One of the things that I would encourage you guys to do is figure out some of the habits that you're trying to keep up with. We're halfway through February. Maybe you had some New Year's resolutions that you're starting to get to that burnout point of, and you really are needing a little bit of extra motivation on that. How would you look at the goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, and now that we're 7 weeks in, how would you reframe that goal to make it more attractive for yourself? I'm really interested in how you guys would apply this lesson to yourself. So if you can leave a comment down below, I would really appreciate it. As always, you can find me in a whole bunch of different places. I've got this posted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. It's also on YouTube. If you want to read the essays that I'm writing every week, it's available on my Substack, which is Easy to Chris, or you can find both the essay and the video production of the podcast on my website, easytochris.com. But until next week, you guys, take it easy.